Most Americans were shocked when U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said the U.S. has only a little more than a year to respond to Iran if it starts making a bomb. And last week, Benjamin Netanyahu said Iran is only 6 months away from having enriched uranium that it will need to make a bomb. Okay, stop. What is the real countdown to the Iranian bomb? And more importantly, what are the prophetic implications of this, both a bomb and a new Iranian deal with Biden? That's what we're talking about today, and we're starting right now. But first, a shout out to community member and Iranian expert Michael Brown for helping research this video. Now first, let's talk about the bomb. As citizens of Israel, the USA, or Saudi Arabia, if we hear Iran has a bomb, there is real fear it might be used on us. These are the 3 most likely targets of Iran's fury, which is level 1 of this video. How soon could that possibly be? And more importantly, can it be stopped? The second level is, how will Iran having a bomb fit in with biblical prophecy? Are there places in Scripture where the use of a bomb might be found? And third, how does the Iran nuclear deal that Biden might re-enter impact the succession of Iranian kings found in Daniel chapter 11, which is a timetable to the 70th week of Daniel? You might be surprised how close we could be. So let's start with how soon Iran might have the bomb. Even saying that is just frightening. Iran is a death cult. Unlike almost all other nations, they don't really care if they live or die, as they are driven, at least the leadership is, by their Islamic eschatology. They are trying to bring back their 12th Imam. They're what we call 12ers. So using a nuclear weapon isn't the biggest deal to them, like it would be for almost any other nation. They likely won't fear reprisals. Now, a little science lesson. In order to have a nuclear weapon, the uranium has to be enriched to 90%, then made into a cylindrical metal to place in the missile. The long part of the process, however, is getting to the first 3.5% of enriched uranium. After that, it's simply a matter of running it in their centrifuges until they get it all the way to 90%. The former chief United Nations inspector of Iran's nuclear program, Ali Heinonen, wrote last April, if the aim is to produce 90% enriched uranium, reaching the 3.5% level requires 75% of the work. By the time 20% enrichment is reached, 90% of the work has been done. This is likely the level Netanyahu says will take 6 months to reach. The time to a full weapon is probably exactly what Leon Panetta said, a year. And this is the amount of time the Biden administration thinks they have in order to allow diplomacy to work. Biden has made it clear there is no chance of the U.S. lifting sanctions on Iran unless they stop enriching uranium first. Biden's position is the opposite of Iran's, who announced well before the U.S. president's comments that the U.S. must lift all sanctions if it wants Iran to return to its commitments. Looks like a Mexican standoff. And in the middle of all this mess is the fact that Iran's supreme leader has died or is terminally ill and is really not leading the country. A new supreme leader will likely be the one calling the shots for Iran. Iran is actually capable of developing a weapon even more quickly than a year. If Iran made the decision, however, to break out and rapidly built a nuclear weapon, it would face a very high risk of the U.S. or Israel taking military action to stop it. So it is more likely that Iran will use a slow, methodical path to enrich uranium, the 1-year path. And the Biden administration thinks they can maybe play chicken while Iran does this, and then be able to enforce a new agreement to stop production. But our channel's opinion is they won't be able to stop Iran diplomatically. Will Israel or the USA be willing to take the risk of bombing the uranium facilities? This is a difficult mission. Cruise missiles can't take out the underground facilities, and Iran has been equipped with modern radar and air defense systems. And the flight from Israel to Iran and back is a very long one, not to mention retaliation from the world for an unprovoked attack. Our opinion is Iran becomes nuclear within a year. So what if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? What biblical passages might indicate them using it? Well, one famous passage from Isaiah is about the destruction of Damascus and the simultaneous damage to northern Israel. Behold, Damascus is about to be removed from being a city, and it will become a fallen ruin. The cities of Ararar are abandoned. Those are Israeli cities. They will be for herds to lie down in, and there will be no one to frighten them. The fortified city will disappear from Ephraim. Now on that day, the glory of Jacob will fade, and the fatness of his flesh will become lean. In other words, it's saying Israel will become poor after that. Now, prophetic scholars are always trying to find a place where this passage fits in. Maybe it is Iran destroying Damascus with a nuclear weapon during their ongoing Syrian struggle. It's a possibility. Another possible target of Iranian attack is Mystery Babylon. In Isaiah, we read about this as well, where Iran is referred to as Elam and Media, two ancient nations that occupy the same spot that Iran does today. A harsh vision has been shown to me. The treacherous one still deals treacherously, and the destroyer still destroys. Go up, Elam, lay siege, Media. Now behold, here comes a troop of riders, horsemen in pairs, and one says, Fallen, fallen is Babylon, and all the images of her gods are shattered on the ground. This is the source of the famous Fallen, fallen is Babylon that the angel says in Revelation 14. Mystery Babylon seems to be destroyed by Iran. So it depends who you think Mystery Babylon is. Some say it's the USA, some say it's Saudi Arabia. Both could be potential targets of nuclear attacks or EMPs. Although these passages refer to horrible destruction, an almost more pressing point prophetically is how the negotiations with Iran will impact the succession of Iranian kings listed in Daniel 11. If you aren't aware that the following passage we're about to read is future prophecy, not just something that happened in the distant past, click on the link at the end of this video on that subject, because you will be amazed. But for now, here is the passage. Behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia. Then a 4th will gain far more riches than all of them. As soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will stir up the entire empire against the realm of Greece. And a mighty king will arise, and he will rule with great authority and do as he pleases. Mighty king in this passage is the leader of Turkey, who arises and defeats Iran in the end times as detailed in Daniel 8. But what we're going to concentrate on in this video is the number of kings Iran has before this happens. And the passage says they have 4. Iran has had 2 supreme leaders in its history, and the most recent one has either died or will die shortly. He's terminally ill. That means we will likely see the 3rd king appointed this year. Remember, there are only 4. In the passage, we see it as the 4th king, however, who becomes richer than all the others and who will stir up Iran against Turkey, which in this passage is known as Yavin. Again, if you have questions about that, watch the video link at the end to get filled in. Now, while the USA still has sanctions on Iran, it certainly isn't rich. In fact, the sanctions are having a disastrous effect on the Iranian economy. China has just provided Iran with a deal for $400 billion to keep the government afloat. But that isn't making them rich yet. So the lifting of sanctions and the return of Iran's oil trade is something that likely needs to happen before the 4th king takes power. Now you might say, hey, wait a minute. You just told me the 3rd king hasn't even taken power. If the 3rd king isn't in power yet, Won't it be a long time until the fourth? The answer is no. Because according to Daniel chapter 8, in the end times, Iran has two kings that rule jointly. So the third king takes power, and then, possibly very shortly after it, a fourth king joins him. Two kings at the same time. As you will learn in the next video, the fourth king will become the more powerful one. And in our opinion, it actually might be the infamous 12th Imam himself, or the Mahdi of Shia Islam. Iran says they know who this figure is. Maybe they're only waiting for the development of a bomb to unveil him. So as a timetable of judging when this fourth king takes power, it will likely be after all the sanctions are lifted and Iran can sell oil freely again and become rich. So if you don't follow this channel closely, what we just discussed may sound very strange. Daniel 8, Daniel 11, both end-time prophecy? Yes. Click right here to watch the video we discussed earlier that explains all of this in more detail. It is super critical because we will likely see this in our lifetimes, maybe in just a year or two. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.